Mindfulness meditation, bringing mindfulness into everyday life. Written and narrated by Christopher Dines. Copyright Christopher Dines, 2015. Published by La Petite Fleur Publishing. Chapter 1. Anxiety, the modern-day plague. Walking down a muddy road. Two monks were once travelling together down a wet and muddy road. The rain was torrential, making it almost impossible to walk along the path. As the two men were trudging along, a beautiful girl dressed in silk appeared. She was unable to cross the path and looked distressed. "Let me help you," said the older monk. He picked her up and carried her over the mud. His younger male companion did not utter a word that night until they reached their lodging temple. Then, after hours of restrained conversation, the younger monk exclaimed, "We monks do not touch females. It is too tempting for us and can create a bad outcome." The older monk looked into the younger monk's eyes and said, "I left the girl on the road. Are you still carrying her?" This ancient Zen story illustrates beautifully how so many of us are trapped in the habit of constantly reliving the past in our minds, thus dishonouring the present moment. The young monk wasted hours distressing himself with judgment, speculation, anxiety, resentment, and ultimately self-perpetuated unhappiness as a direct result of not being mindful. One of the primary causes of anxiety is the inability to let go of past memories and future speculations, meaning that the present moment cannot be fully accessed. However, when we are able to access the nowness of consciousness, the present moment, we are free from hyperactive thinking and therefore free from distressing emotions. Anxiety in modern-day society. Anxiety and stress-related mental dysfunction is the plague of modern-day society. Millions of people are tormented by anxious thinking and the consequent distress this brings, irrespective of whether they live in a mansion or a bedsit, or whether they earn millions or are living on the breadline. This would indicate that external circumstances cannot prevent or cause pathological anxiety or free people from negative emotions. A lack of fulfillment and neediness contaminates people from all walks of life. Neediness has become deeply ingrained in the collective consciousness, and the effects of anxious thinking cast a shadow on humanity. The number of people working in the medical professions who also confess to being troubled by stress and anxiety is growing. If many of our trained psychologists, therapists, nurses and doctors are also suffering, this would again indicate that the quick fix approach to accessing peace of mind is clearly not working. Countless people in the public eye who also enjoy success and prestige also suffer from a lack of tranquility. The list of highly paid entertainers and television stars who regularly attend therapy or seek some kind of psychiatric help is a long one. In the world of finance, accomplished men and women are tormented by their own mental anguish and strain. The pressure of maintaining the outstanding performance required to stay on top of their game takes its toll daily on countless employees, their bosses and subsequently on their families. In the sports world, many of the most gifted sportsmen and women are plagued with chronic depression, anxiety, and neediness. Even though their earning capacity is higher than most, and although they may have reached incredible heights of achievement, emotional distress is more prevalent than ever. In the academic world, anxiety is shared amongst students, teachers, and professors alike. The overemphasis on achieving results and topping league tables has become so damaging that we have seen levels of stress and strain rising throughout high schools, colleges and universities at a time of life when young people should be at their most free. The insistence on cramming information into millions of human minds has kept us fixated on the past and future, dismissing the nowness of life. What causes anxiety? People believe they become anxious for all sorts of external reasons: financial pressures, family problems, conflicts or deadlines in the workplace, etc. The truth is that anxiety is not created or caused by external circumstances or events, but by a lack of awareness and an inability to be present. In other words, when we do not mindfully operate in the present moment, we become hostage to a hyperactive mind that produces between 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. We're at the mercy of past memories and future fantasies, constantly racing from one thought to another. Being lost in this constant stream of thought, we are likely to be emotionally drained by the repetitive ideas, concepts and memories appearing over and over again. This will create more anxiety and frustration, leading to more negative emotions and thoughts, thus creating a mental and emotional prison. However, once we are able to switch on the light, awareness, in our consciousness, and anchor ourselves back into the present moment, all thoughts of the past and future vanish almost miraculously, leaving a stillness of mind and a blissful calm feeling within. This is why the spiritual teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, wrote, "The present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it." When we are anxious about a particular outcome or dwelling in fear over a successful or unsuccessful result, we become spiritually unconscious, falling into a monologue created by the human mind. We have merely created stories in our minds, believing them to be true. For instance, how many times have you been physically in the company of loved ones, but mentally and emotionally elsewhere, perhaps entrenched in memories or worrying about a potential future outcome? The quality time with loved ones is wasted because of an inability to be firmly in the present moment. This absent-minded way of living is the norm for most people. Nevertheless, it is a low-quality way to live. It diminishes the wonder and beauty of life by creating a constant anxious reality. Anxiety and panic attacks. Many people are tormented by anxiety or panic attacks on a daily basis. Similarly, most people are regularly troubled by subtle feelings of disconnectedness and unease. Many bright, intelligent and friendly people fall victim to unexpected anxiety attacks, which can easily be overcome in seconds through a practice of mindfulness meditation. As a terrorizing thought sweeps them away, a compulsive attachment to hold on to their fear becomes so intense that their breathing becomes increasingly shallow. As their breathing draws less oxygen into their bodies, they become physically and mentally distressed, leading to a cycle of more anxiety. If a panic attack is not immediately addressed correctly, convincing thoughts of death or impending disaster can overpower their reason very quickly. My first panic attack. The first panic attack I had was after a late night partying in the West End, London, during my teenage years. I went home hoping to fall asleep. Unfortunately, I was kept up for hours in a state of terror and chronic anxiety. The thoughts that I was dying were so frightening and felt so real that I called an ambulance. The paramedic gave me a brown paper bag to breathe into, which gradually calmed me down. I was so anxious about the thought of dying that I forgot to breathe properly, creating unbearable tension and strain on my body. The fundamental solution to this anxiety attack was not a sedative or a mood-altering substance, but relearning how to breathe properly, anchoring myself in the present moment, i.e. mindfulness meditation. The more I focused on my breathing, and the less I thought about my fabricated fearful worries, the more I felt calm, comfortable, and at peace. as a direct result of no longer using mind or mood-altering substances, and by honouring mindfulness and spiritual principles, I've not had a panic attack for over a decade. Transcending phobias and social anxiety. Whether someone suffers from phobias or social anxiety, or even obsessive-compulsive disorder, if we investigate the cause of these distressing conditions with great scrutiny, there is almost always a lack of presence honoured in one's consciousness. The sudden urge to run out of a room because an anxious thought makes us feel utterly incapable of talking to someone is a direct result of past memories and stories created in the mind. Naturally, this sweeps away any possibility of being present, calm, and in the moment. At times, we have all felt very uncomfortable and anxious in particular circumstances, whether it be a presentation at work, a family event, a difficult phone call, or a school reunion. There might even be a justifiable reason why we feel uncomfortable in someone else's company. A lack of presence and the anxious thoughts themselves will amplify these uncomfortable feelings. We can greatly lessen our phobias and even let go of any compulsive desires. The alcoholic who has recently made a conscious decision to quit drinking will find great benefit from being able to monitor any thoughts that suggest he ought to drink again, which, if acted upon, would destroy his life and harm the people who care about him. As a matter of fact, from my experience of having direct contact with people recovering from grave addictions, the spiritual aspects of mindfulness have not only helped them to develop new habits, but have nourished their hearts and minds with a feeling of contentment, thus negating the need to seek oblivion or mental relief in a mind or mood-altering substance. Many of us have been programmed to be constantly doing things, and also have an unconscious feeling of guilt that if we are not constantly achieving, we are useless. Quite often, the imperious urge to be doing all of the time is an escape from unaddressed emotional baggage, which has collected over the years. This perpetuates anxious thoughts, creating a cycle of dissatisfaction and neediness. If we master the balance of being and doing, our lives will improve drastically. An anxious thought or a pathological desire to be constantly achieving can be tamed and even healed through regular presence awareness and mindful living. Find a good doctor. Many people who suffer from regular panic and anxiety attacks look for a solution in alcohol or illegal drugs, which does not cure the problem but exacerbates it by destabilising long-term mental well-being. From talking to many people at spiritual retreats who used to suffer from anxiety attacks, they found that when they started to practice mindfulness meditation, they found some release from the grips of anxious emotions. Similarly, those who stopped using mind and mood-altering substances found that the after-effects of drug use, anxiety, no longer distressed them. They've been able to access tranquility and inner peace as a result of honouring the present moment. Of course, some mental illnesses are so grave that medication is essential. A good doctor or a psychiatrist will know exactly what to prescribe or not to prescribe. However, even those who suffer from such severe mental illnesses can gain some relief from practicing mindfulness meditation. Spiritual downtime. In today's fast-paced world, it is very easy to get lost in the creative process of doing and manifesting new ideas. Making new things happen is fun. After all, this world is a playground to co-create our reality with the universe. However, as expressed previously, when the sole purpose of one's life becomes lost in doing rather than being, mental and emotional suffering will dominate one's experience. Many of us take holidays hoping to unwind, only to find that even in a serene location, the stream of anxious thoughts and emotions prevents us from actually being present enough to enjoy the vacation. What is the point of sitting on a white beach in Thailand if one is obsessing about professional or family duties in London or the next goal? I have done this. taking regular spiritual downtime is essential for us to connect with a deeper level of consciousness, to rejuvenate the body and still the mind. Most of us have days crammed with activities and duties of all sorts. This can be an excuse to discard taking time out every day to meditate or anchor ourselves in the present moment as we don't have time. However, the excuse is simply a thought which can be dismissed like all other unhelpful thoughts as we realise that downtime is critical to our well-being. I have made a habit of walking in the beautiful parks in London, making a conscious decision to leave my mobile phone and watch at home or in the office. This frees me from being tied to man-made time and allows me to be directly in harmony with nature. If you can put aside at least a couple of hours every week where you're not bound to the clock and can be present with no digital distractions, you will not only aid the process of diminishing anxious thoughts, but will be far more effective in your line of work for the rest of the week, releasing anxiety, worry, and negative emotions. We will uncover more insight on anchoring yourself to be present further on in this book. Chapter 2. Peace of Mind. Flowing into peace. Peace of mind is essential for individual and collective tranquility and for love and fulfillment to be realised. Happiness, creativity, joy and compassion can only flow when we are peaceful within ourselves. All ancient and new spiritual traditions guide us to access inner peace so that we can be useful and effective human beings. Quality of life eludes us when we are consumed with anxiety and fear. Consider a gifted musician who plays the piano beautifully. He might have the most incredible music to express and share with the world, but unless his piano is properly tuned and able to function, the music cannot be expressed through his instrument. Or a gifted poet who has an oasis of beautiful poems to contribute to the world, but whose pen is broken so that no words can be written. Or imagine a beautiful lake that has a stream of fresh water flowing through it. If the stream is clogged with debris and litter, it makes it extremely difficult for clean water to pass through, creating stagnation and pollution. Similarly, we must humble ourselves to be open to receive a new peaceful energy into our consciousness if we want to lead happy and fulfilling lives. We must open our minds and hearts to allow purity and a new creativity to flow within and through us. We cannot share peace with the world if we are unable to realise it within ourselves, and we certainly cannot express love if we have internal negative emotional blockages. External peace begins with inner peace, which is why Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is within," meaning that if we first address our mental conditioning in a harmonious way, we can enjoy a peaceful and abundant life. Similarly, the 14th Dalai Lama said, "We can never obtain peace in the outer world until we make peace with ourselves." Dissolving self-obsession. When we make a decision to honour our inner peace and allow it to blossom, we feel drawn to create peace in our external environment. As we become mindful, we begin to notice our sensitivity to other people's suffering, including our own. We are no longer oversensitive to others' criticisms or opinions, which is an expression of self-obsession, but begin to feel empathy and compassion for all human beings. This is a beautiful process of raising our consciousness to a higher state of being. Where previously we might have blatantly laughed at others' misfortunes or quietly celebrated when others were lacking in success, we find this attitude to be abhorrent and very harmful towards ourselves and others. The impact of realising inner peace can be compared to the gift of an extraordinary surgeon who is operating on his patient to remove disease from the body. Pure consciousness begins to immediately cleanse all of the negative energy which has prevented us from being an instrument of love and compassion. This is a wonderful but challenging process. shedding the patterns of the ego, releasing inner rage and trauma, and relearning to let go of all outcomes and results. Being in the flow of inner peace, we start to realise that we're truly connected to everything and everyone, that we're part of the human species and an expression of one infinite power. A serene reality. The field of infinite possibilities already has a wonderfully serene life mapped out for us if we are able to tune into it. Just like choosing to watch a wonderful film on television, it is our responsibility to choose to find it and then make the efforts to tune into the right channel. Similarly, if we are listening to digital radio, we will have access to thousands of different shows to absorb. However, it is up to us to tune into the type of show we wish to enjoy, rather than tolerating a stream of mindless rubbish. It is exactly the same with the field of infinite possibilities. We can begin to tune up and tune into a new wonderful conscious reality, where we are operating from our hearts, sharing joy, expressing our bliss, and living mindfully. Anyone can access inner peace regardless of past conditioning. Our programming does affect our perception of reality, but the destructive spell can be broken with an honest willingness to practice mindfulness. Some negative conditioning is so entrenched within us, such as inner rage, trauma and self-hate, that therapy, psychology and psychiatry stand no chance of healing the cause of mental and emotional suffering. This is why, when all other attempts have failed to bring inner peace, so many people have no choice but to revert back inside to uncover their spiritual nature through meditation. From this vital step, a new awareness of pure consciousness and pure love can begin to blossom, and thus inner peace can flow. Even warped dictators guilty of brutally terrorizing humanity could have access to inner tranquility if they woke up and became conscious enough to realize that it is deep within them. Those who've experienced severe trauma in childhood, or who are trying to cope with potentially fatal illnesses, can also realize deep inner peace through a slight shift in their consciousness. Many members of religious and spiritual groups who contribute wonderful service to the world have often come through horrific experiences or have endured terrible hardship, which eventually helps them to hit a mental and emotional rock bottom, thus beginning the process of a spiritual awakening. Their new awareness has made them mindfully present and at peace with themselves. Men and women in prisons have found great comfort by accepting the realization that they too can access inner peace. I have had the honour of sharing and spending time with men who have served years in prison, but are now some of the most effective, positive members of society. They too became aware of their capacity to love unconditionally. All human beings, regardless of their past actions or current mental conditioning, can access serenity. We can consciously cleanse our past negative actions by being present and operating in the present moment, where inner stillness and peace reside. Imagine a drawing board with all of our guilt, shame and dysfunctional thoughts written on it, which are a projection of the future or a collection of our past memories. When we step into the present moment, the nowness of consciousness, the board is wiped completely clean. Only we can decide. Do we feel unworthy of serenity, love, joy, bliss and abundance? Or do we accept that we have a timeless reservoir of inner peace that we can access any time we humbly honour the present moment and mindfully take part in life? This choice is given to every single human being alive today as a direct path to inner peace and freedom. Cleansing our perception. The perception we have of this world is going to shape how we interact with people and will ultimately dictate our thoughts, feelings, actions, and deeds. If we cannot or will not allow ourselves to be open to inner peace, we place ourselves at a huge disadvantage. If we have filled our minds with doubt and suspicion, our perception of reality will produce a bleak and hostile world for us. Conversely, If we learn to silence our minds and focus on beauty, love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, warmth, friendliness and abundance, our perception of reality will manifest into an attractive and beautiful world. This is the incredible power of perception. Perception creates reality. As we mindfully step back from negative thinking, our perception and our reality change for the better. On a deeper level, a man, a girl, and a dog could be sitting by a river, gazing into the water. They will, however, all have a completely different perceptual experience of it. This clearly indicates that there are infinite possibilities of how consciousness is perceived by the observer and how it manifests as a perception. Thus, the same consciousness that is observing the pool through the brain and body of a dog is the same consciousness that views the pool through the mind, brain and body of the girl and the man. This profound understanding, which comes through mindfulness, enlightened states of awareness, deepens the realization of our collective oneness and melts away perceptions of separateness. For years, my perception of reality was hostile and very judgmental, as I was operating from a place of unresolved trauma, fear, neediness and anxiety. I focused on negative things, and as a result, I drew negative circumstances into my world. This brought about a painful karmic cycle, which became increasingly difficult to break free from, until I went deep within and stopped trying to control outcomes. However, once I started to focus on serving and living with an open heart, and began practicing mindfulness meditation, life started to become a lot easier to flow with. A simple example of perceptual reality is when looking in the mirror one day, you might be wearing a favourite coat and say to yourself, "This coat really suits me." However, 2 weeks later, you can stand in front of the same mirror with the same coat on and think, "I don't feel good wearing this coat today." What has changed? Your perception. The coat and mirror are the same as they were before, but how you perceived yourself shaped what you saw. This is why it is essential to access inner peace, otherwise we can look at the world through a lens of darkness, bitterness and hostility, and as a result, the world will reflect all of this back towards us. Knowing this, we can make a conscious choice to bring our full attention to the present moment. This not only stops us from creating internal hatred, but it gives us a fresh, enthusiastic, peaceful and joyful perception of our world. This is what the spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle meant by, "When you no longer perceive the world as hostile, there is no more fear, and when there is no more fear, you think, speak and act differently." Chapter 3. Being Mindful. Transcending Thinking. Learning how to transcend our thoughts is the key to mental, emotional and spiritual well-being. All of the great spiritual masters, sages, saints and gurus of the last 5,000 years have clearly shown us that if we truly wish to access peace of mind, we must transcend our thoughts. This is why meditation, particularly mindfulness, is so highly effective at uncovering inner peace and tranquility. So effective is meditation that the medical field is now endorsing this practice as a way of developing mental and emotional well-being. Humanity has come a long way. It was not so long ago, during the 1970s and 1980s, that many scientists were on a pathological mission to disprove the spiritual realizations in the ancient mystical texts, claiming that meditation was mumbo-jumbo. Thankfully, times have changed. Unhappiness is a warped and distorted perception of reality. When a man says he is unhappy with his life and gives a written list of why he is dissatisfied, he is given a frank account of the state of his mind. If his mind is neglected and starved from stillness of thought, the nature of his thinking will reflect turbulence, anxiety, and a lack of fulfillment. However, when he is able to transcend thought by being the observer, the witness of his thinking, and can take control of his mind, tranquility begins to flow through him. He is no longer a slave to his mental concepts, distinctions, and limiting beliefs. This realization is why the Buddha warned us against taking our mental concepts too seriously. In the sky there is no east or west, yet people create distinctions out of their own minds and then believe them to be true. When someone makes a conscious decision to explore their esoteric reality, they rise above the heaviness of material contamination and begin to transcend all distress and mental chaos. In other words, the more we access pure clarity and pure awareness, the better we are equipped to enjoy happiness and peace of mind. When feelings of worry, tension, and inner rage begin to manifest, a brief encounter with the present moment can shower away all toxic thoughts from your mind. Imagine that your mind is like a great deep ocean, and the waves on the surface represents thoughts and emotions. These can all too often be turbulent and overwhelming. However, deep below the ocean there is a calm stillness, free from all disturbance. This stillness represents pure awareness and deep inner peace. This inner peace is what all human beings yearn for, but instead, they search on the surface of their minds, where they meet great resistance from clamorous and hyperactive thoughts. When we practice mindfulness, we have access to a wonderful stillness that is blissful, peaceful, and at times entrancing. This blissful awareness lies deep down in our consciousness and can be realized any time we wish to be present. The life breath. The most efficient way to transcend unsettling thoughts is through the life breath. When we bring our full attention to the life breath, it becomes a gateway to access a deeper and higher level of awareness. We can see our aggressive and disturbing thoughts for what they really are: shallow, short-lived, frequently wrong, and at times comical. Therefore, pay attention to your breathing as often as possible. This is the bedrock to inner peace and tranquility. Any time you're whisked away by a non-productive or negative thought, focus on your breathing. This is why in the book, Manifest Your Bliss, A Spiritual Guide to Inner Peace, I wrote, "When meditating, let the thoughts come as they may whilst remaining alert. When you begin to get emotionally attached to a negative thought, bring your attention back to your breathing." If you must take several deep breaths to start the process of mindfulness, do so. After several deep breaths, allow breathing to flow naturally, being aware of the process. This is a powerful way to uncover inner peace because it is impossible to be swept away with thoughts if we are purely focused on our breathing. This is why Thich Nhat Hanh says, "Feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor." The beauty of mindful life breath meditation is that you are not restricted to having to sit in the lotus position to be present. Whether you are on a busy train, driving a car, or walking down a crowded high street, you can easily remind yourself to focus on your breathing. Appreciate the subtle sensation of oxygen flowing in and out of your nostrils. You can be jostling with crowds at a busy train station, and yet be in the most blissful and serene state by honouring the present moment through paying attention to your breathing. This is not to dismiss making a commitment to attend regular meditation groups or to sit down quietly on your own to practice mindfulness meditation. This simply means that you can be present throughout the day, not just at specific times, which is the true realisation of mindfulness. For instance, I've met quite a few men and women who attend mindfulness-based workshops and are excellent at sitting still in a group for an hour, but when they leave their meditation group, They fall back into being unconscious and unaware of their busy minds. They fall back into being a subject of the human ego. This is part-time mindfulness. The true purpose of attending a mindfulness meditation retreat or class is to remind ourselves to practice this way of life throughout the day. As mentioned in a previous chapter, I would suggest that you do attend a regular mindfulness class or meditation retreat, but do not rest on your laurels by falling straight back into unconscious behaviour after the group has finished. Head to the heart. The story of a man who wished to master mindfulness meditation illustrates what has just been emphasised about mindfulness being a full-time practice. He made a decision to meditate with a group of Buddhist monks in China for 3 years so that he could be more alert and peaceful inside. He managed to apply himself to the rigorous daily rituals for 3 years. Feeling well accomplished, he decided to return back to England. However, at the airport, while waiting to board his plane, he was told that his passport had expired and he was not able to catch the flight he had paid for. He was then taken into a room for an intrusive security search. Feeling distressed, he did his best not to show this on his face. The security guard then accidentally spilt black coffee all over the man's brand new coat, at which point he snapped, lost his temper, and verbally abused the airport staff. The principle of this story is that we cannot expect to access inner peace by avoiding human relationships. Going to a spiritual retreat to recharge the batteries is wonderful, but the real test of our level of presence is in our day-to-day affairs. If we can practice mindfulness in our most challenging environments, such as a family household or an intense working environment, we are truly being mindful. Persisting into presence. True mindfulness is being able to appreciate the present moment wherever life takes us. Whether we are working, shopping, gardening or cleaning our home, the same respect and attention to the present moment ought to be honoured. Whether we are living in a vibrant, busy city or a quiet country village, an appreciation for both locations is a sure indicator that mindfulness has been realised. When we are alert and mindfully living this way, we are free from the attachment of wishing for particular outcomes and are able to go with the flow, no matter how challenging a situation we find ourselves in. This same centre point is what many ancient sages call yoga. A serious practice of yoga or mindfulness leads us to unconditionally honour the present moment, freeing us from wanting or needing anything else to feel fulfilled. As with everything worthwhile that has great value, persistence and an ability to adapt is necessary when attempting to practice mindfulness. The human mind is extremely powerful, and so when a beginner starts to practice meditation, a strong resistance will probably emerge. A habit built up over years, sometimes decades, of buying into destructive thought patterns is not going to vanish overnight. Like all other manifestations, mindfulness is a process that becomes easier with regular practice. As written in the Bhagavad Gita, I think that the mind is more difficult to control than the wind. Thus, if you try to force your mind to be mindful, you are fighting a losing battle. The art of mindfulness is to transcend the desire to control or resist your mind through observation of thought and emotion. This places you in a position of neutrality, unattached to the mental noise, thus being able to watch the live monologue taking place in your mind. It is impossible to fight or struggle in order to gain peace, and this is especially true when learning to transcend thought. The beautiful realisation of persisting is that the more we are mindfully aware and present, the easier life becomes, and the more enjoyable it is to participate in. Simple tasks such as having a warm shower or a hot bath can be blissful if we are not lost in the mind, thinking about the past or the future. It means that when we are walking in a beautiful park or in the presence of an array of exquisite flowers, we can truly enjoy the process of the experience and life unfolding, rather than being somewhere else in our minds. It means that we no longer have to crave for superficial thrills, nor do we squander hours worrying about circumstances that are highly unlikely to unfold. It is mindfully living in the present moment that brings us a realization of well-being and contentment on all levels. This is why Abraham Maslow said, "The ability to be in the present moment is a major component of mental wellness." Body awareness meditation. A very powerful and effective way to anchor yourself into the present moment is by paying attention to the inner energy flow of your body. When you bring your full and undivided focus to a particular area of your body, you transcend your thoughts and at times stop thinking altogether. Body awareness meditation can be practiced throughout the day. For instance, if you are sitting at your desk at work, or are on a break from family duties for a few minutes, why not use this space to be present? Merely bringing your attention to your hands or any other part of your body will work wonders in helping you to silence intrusive or irritating thoughts and emotions. While being on jam-packed trains in London, I found this practice to be most useful and reassuring. Several minutes of utilising this meditation has brought a subtle stillness to my consciousness. Whether you are sitting or lying down, but not driving unless you are in the passenger seat, honour the traditional practice of body awareness meditation. Below is a simple guide to applying this meditation. A. Bring your attention to the top of your head, to the crown chakra. Be aware of any feelings at the top of your head and keep your attention there for a minute or so. B. Now bring your attention to your forehead. C. Now be aware of your eyes, then your nose and your ears. D. Notice any subtle feelings on your cheeks, jaw and on your face. E. Be aware of your neck and throat. F. Then bring your attention to your shoulders. G. Be aware of your arms and then your hands. H. Allow yourself to feel your hands, then allow energy to flow right to the top of your fingernails and keep your attention there for a minute or so. I. Now bring your attention to the front of your body and notice your chest. J. Notice your lungs and then pay attention to your heartbeat. K. Now be aware of your stomach rising up and down. Notice how when you inhale your stomach rises and when you exhale your stomach contracts. L. Now bring your attention to the back of your body, from the back of your head to your spine, and do exactly as you did with the front of your body, going from top to bottom. M. Be aware of your back, then your waist and hips down to your thighs, knees, calves and shins, right down to your feet and toes. This is a basic guide which can be applied at any time. To make full use of this practice, however, it will be sensible to put 10 minutes aside to fully honour the meditation. If, as expressed earlier on, you are restricted to a minute or two, you can always just focus on one particular area in your body, which will be effective at stilling the mind from thoughts. Mindfully creating new habits. Your habits, rituals, can make or break you, cause joy or suffering. We call a multitude of habits a paradigm. Your habits are formed first as ideas, concepts and beliefs. Many people have destructive habits which they are not even aware of. they are unconscious. Unless these negative habits change, disappointing results must follow. The results in your life are a manifestation of your beliefs, ideas, and habits. When you decide to break free from disempowering rituals, compulsive thinking, dysfunctional behaviour, you will experience resistance. This is perfectly natural. It is important that you flow through this process by letting go of any emotional attachment. Let go of fighting your habits. Simply be present and observe their patterns. This will help you to break free until the negative patterns eventually subside. Many people report that during their first serious attempts to be alert and present during meditation, they drift off into sleep, especially when sitting down. Although mindfulness is about being present while being awake, if you fall asleep, it merely means that your body is telling you that you are tired. If you have an opportunity to rest, do so. Then come back to practicing your meditation. After practicing this for a while, the habit of honouring the present moments will become fixed in your consciousness, revealing to you the most incredible spiritual, mental and emotional breakthroughs. The openness of a flower. It is no coincidence that many spiritual teachers have flowers close by. A flower is a light and precious being that can be a wonderful tool to help us to access the present moment. Not only is it a being of beauty with a sweet fragrance, but it can directly anchor us into the nowness of life. Test this for yourself. If you habitually sit in a room without any flowers, buy some and see how the room is transformed and feels lighter and more open. In the New Testament, Jesus pointed out the blissful states that flowers can trigger within us whenever we feel anxious. He said, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow, they neither toil nor spin." Meaning that it is pointless to waste time worrying and being anxious about our needs. Jesus showed us that a flower can be a wonderful tool to anchor a hyperactive mind back into joyful presence and inner peace. At all of our meditation workshops and retreats, we insist on fresh flowers being present in the room where they can clearly be noticed. It not only enhances the room aesthetically, but helps to remove any emotional heaviness from people who attend and are new to meditation. One of the techniques we use to honour the present moment is adopted from the Buddha. We ask the participants to carefully hold a flower and give it their full attention without mentally labelling, but instead just appreciating its beauty. This powerful method can be practiced by anyone at any given time and is incredibly effective. Similarly, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who carried a flower with him everywhere he went, said, "Happiness radiates like the fragrance from a flower and draws all good things towards you." Nature into presence. Nature can be very helpful in allowing someone new to mindfulness to uncover inner peace. For instance, while walking in the middle of a forest, there is a quietness that triggers an inner stillness and a feeling of bliss within. It is not that the forest can give us inner peace. It is that the deep stillness of the environment reminds us of a timeless inner awareness and tranquility within ourselves. This is another reason why many people take to gardening. After years of a hectic lifestyle and with maturity, the wish to find peace of mind overtakes the wish to chase excitement and thrills. Being around flowers, trees and wildlife can often be a remedy for people searching for inner peace. This can be a great starting point for people who wish to make mindfulness a full-time way of being. The world's creatures are another release for many human beings. People gladly volunteer their services to help tend for animals, as purely being in their presence gives them a temporary sense of release from their imprisoned state of thinking. We bring animals into our homes and families as pets because we feel lighter in their presence, which in truth does not come from the creatures, but comes from within us. We do not feel that animals are going to judge or criticise us, and as a result, there is less reason for our minds to start creating defensive monologues, and we are more likely to feel safe and serene. Overdependence on chosen environments. Although having a relationship with an animal, or taking up a hobby such as gardening, or even making a career out of working in the great outdoors are all wonderful ways to access peace of mind, suffering can result if we are too dependent on a chosen environment to be free from mental noise. There is a strong possibility that by creating an emotional attachment to a creature or a place, should we find ourselves in a situation where we are deprived of this, we will feel dissatisfaction and a sense of unease. As mentioned earlier on, someone who is serious about living mindfully ought to be calm, alert and joyful, whether they are gardening or sitting in a traffic jam. This emphasis on being free from attachment was expressed by the Buddha. Free yourself from all attachment. Similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said, "Perform your duty and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind is called yoga." In a letter to the Philippians, St. Paul wrote, "For I have learned, in whatever state I am, to be content. I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. In any and all circumstances I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and want." Similarly, Swami Prabhupada said, "Attachment never leads one to the path of salvation. Any attachment, positive or negative, is the cause of bondage." Krishna, the Buddha, St. Paul and Prabhupada are pointing us to the same realization, to be free from attachment and thus access peace of mind. Concentrating and being alert. A lack of concentration and an inability to focus on the present moment causes many people to suffer. Even in the business world, many companies are now recognizing how damaging a lack of concentration is to the quality of their services and products. If a member of staff fails to be present and alert while overlooking financial activity, this could cost a big or small business a great deal of money or credibility with their clients. Even in the world of sport, avoidable errors are made which can cost a team dearly. How many times has a lack of concentration on the field cost a big football or rugby club a chance to progress in a major tournament? We all make errors and can lack concentration, but this can be greatly reduced by practicing mindfulness throughout our day. It has been said by many professionals who study the human mind that on average a human being's attention span can last up to approximately 7 seconds. This may be a general statistic. Nevertheless, this stat is not relevant to people who seriously practice mindfulness. We can operate in the present moment, free from distracting thoughts for a long time, as long as we are alert and prepared to anchor ourselves in the nowness of life. I have personally had many occasions where I have not had a thought pass through my mind for well over an hour, feeling an utter bliss, naturally. I'm not talking about excitement, which is short-lived and a lower quality state of being. I am referring to what many sages and gurus call a stillness of being. Therefore, do not allow a generalised statistic condition you into believing that you can be alert and present for less than 10 seconds. Most of the time, you will require a willingness to be alert and to practice anchoring yourself into the present moment through the life breath. However, at times, presence and tranquility can come with no effort on your behalf. You may be walking or driving, and all of a sudden a wave of bliss and stillness flows through your every pore. You are still able to attend to your duties and are fully and naturally conscious, but the mind is silent with no mental images, thoughts or emotions bothering you. You have accessed a domain which the Buddhists call nirvana, and many Hindu traditions call bliss, and mystical Christians call salvation. This usually comes to most people every so often for a few seconds, but because it is so unexpected and unusual, they start to question it, meaning that they have invited their thinking to spoil a perfect realization in the nowness of life. Sometimes, someone who does not practice mindfulness can have random realizations of the present and be bathed in pure awareness and contentment for several minutes. If you are reading this book, it is very likely that you have already experienced subtle realizations of deep tranquility and equilibrium, or you may have been practicing mindfulness for a number of years and have realized a deep inner peace. You can access this anytime you wish, which will help you to concentrate in even the most challenging circumstances. If, however, you have not realized or accessed a stillness of thought or bliss awareness, you can begin to access this right now and improve your concentration by paying attention to your breathing. Quality alertness. How many times have you heard the expression quality over quantity? Unfortunately, the true meaning behind it is overlooked by most, as quality does not just mean accumulating designer clothes, 5-star holidays or sports cars. The spiritual realization behind quality over quantity is that every action we take throughout the day ought to be honoured and given our full attention rather than saving special occasions to bring beauty and excellence into the stream of life. The more attention you pay to the most subtle tasks you undertake throughout the day, the more you will set a vibrational frequency of excellence which flows into whatever you do. Even a simple act such as making a cup of tea can be transformed from a mundane task to a pleasurable gift which you are offering to yourself or to others. When you are listening to another human being, are you thinking about other objectives, or are you truly present and honouring their engagement with you? By placing quality into everyday activities, we carry a feeling of well-being, affluence, abundance and inner peace. This serene energy will dictate what future occurrences unfold. In other words, if we are slapdash about our less important tasks, the future will be shallow and will manifest low-quality outcomes. The means is just as worthy as the ends, simply because they are one. The feeling you put into the means dictates the feeling of the end. The next time you find yourself rushing and dishonouring what is happening right now, hoping to get somewhere else, pause for a moment, breathe deeply, and give your full attention to what you are doing right now. This is the art of paying attention to detail. Emotional well-being. As many of the great spiritual teachers have taught us for thousands of years, meditation uncovers true peace of mind and a feeling of being connected to our very highest nature. As science has become increasingly enthusiastic about the quest for mental and emotional well-being, it has been revealed in many studies that meditation is the ultimate marquee technique to develop inner bliss and inner peace. Mindfulness meditation uncovers authentic happiness, joy, and a sharp alertness. On a physiological level, meditation lowers oxygen consumption, increases blood flow, and slows the heart rate. It enhances physical relaxation and improves the immune system, leading to increased energy levels and strength, and can also help to lower cholesterol levels and the risk of cardiovascular disease. Mindfulness improves the flow of air to the lungs, resulting in easier breathing, and slows the aging process. Meditation makes it easier for you to concentrate, removing negative thoughts and emotions, and increasing serotonin levels. On a deeper level, regular meditation uncovers your timeless and creative nature and puts you in touch with your intuitive inner being. When you are in touch with your higher self and operating from a vibrational frequency, emotional state of inner peace and abundance, the external world begins to make life much easier for you. You can directly improve your relationships, personal, social and professional, through the power of mindfulness. The benefits of mindfulness have played an effective role in improving the function of the brain, particularly the prefrontal cortex, helping us to transcend from an animalistic nature into becoming more sensitive, creative, compassionate, kind, intelligent, and serene. Letting go of our autobiography. It is much easier to practice forgiveness and compassion when consciously being mindful. When we are angry or resentful, we are emotionally attached to a recent or distant memory. We are reinforcing a negative story that we hold on to, causing us and others to suffer. When we are mindfully present, we can step back from the mind's merry-go-round and observe a resentful memory for what it is, a troublesome thought. When we are mindful, we are able to pay attention to our most intimate relationships. In all human relationships, mindfulness is imperative. It allows us to be mentally and emotionally available while communicating and engaging with other human beings. If we are properly equipped to pay attention to detail while communicating with others, we are less likely to create a distorted reality, meaning that we are going to lessen our chances of creating conflict with others. All human conflict is a result of a lack of sound and sober communication. This dysfunctional habit is caused by neglecting mindfulness. Thankfully, our motives can be monitored much more easily when we are present, diverting us from the temptations of wanting to reform and manipulate others due to a complexity around control issues which is deeply ingrained in the collective human consciousness. When a strong thought attempts to lead us into creating an action based on self-centeredness and self-obsession, we can pause and observe the idea before acting upon it. This spiritual approach has been a primary factor when assisting people to break free from all sorts of addictive patterns and behaviours. As we observe a destructive thought, we find that it eventually vanishes. This is why the spiritual teacher, Ramana Maharshi, said, "If the mind falls asleep, awaken it. Then if it starts wandering, make it quiet." Chapter 4. Joy. Accessing joy. The key to accessing love, joy, peace and compassion is to be free from the dominant state of compulsive thinking. Once we are able to flow into mindfulness and still our thoughts, happiness manifests. Love and joy are our natural state of being. Regardless of distressing temporary emotions which might appear, happiness is our essential nature. The wish to feel joyful is not a luxury or something that has to be earned. Love and mindful tranquility are our ground state of consciousness and transcend thought and emotion. Imagine bright sunlight shining through the windows of a beautiful home. If someone were to pull down all of the blinds in the house, thus preventing the rays from entering, this would not mean that the sun had been extinguished and was no longer radiating its light. Similarly, you might obscure your natural peaceful centre point with a murky fog of worry and anxiety. But once you release emotional toxicity, you allow joy to blossom inside of you. Being happy and joyful might not be the norm. Nevertheless, it is perfectly natural and essential so that we can live harmonious and successful lives. This is what Maharishi Mahesh Yogi meant by saying, "Being happy is of the utmost importance. Success in anything is through happiness." Similarly, the 14th Dalai Lama emphasized the importance of being happy by saying, "The very purpose of our life is to seek happiness." And in the Dhammapada it clearly states, "Live in joy, in love, even among those who hate. Live in joy, in health, even among the afflicted. Live in joy, in peace, even among the troubled." Human beings do all sorts of insane and stressful things because they believe that by doing so, they will find joy. Many people work long hours in jobs where their creativity is stifled so that they can earn more money to buy things that will ultimately increase their unhappiness. This illogical yet cunning philosophy of achieving external happiness is counteractive because nothing material can last. Thus, any attachment to technology or material things will bring a sense of loss, Once the device or thing no longer functions, we grow tired of it or have to let it go for one reason or another. If a man were to buy a brand new sports car because he believed it would bring him joy, and then he could no longer afford the luxury, he would suffer as a result of attaching his identity to something futile and temporary. Some people chase applause and recognition to give them a sense of acceptance amongst their peers. Naturally, this concept is flawed because any dependence on praise and acclaim from others makes us slaves to approval and opinions. Others chase the euphoric feeling of falling in love, or are compulsively promiscuous in the belief that sex or infatuation will bring some sort of blissful state. However, when faced with the facts, none of these superficial activities bring authentic, long-lasting joy. The programming and self-delusion of achieving external happiness is so powerful and elusive that millions of people all over the world are aggressively competing with one another, hoping to find an answer which already lies within them. Their lack of mindfulness causes them huge suffering. However, this pattern of dissatisfaction and the addiction of buying happiness can be expelled. No longer do people have to torment themselves by wasting energy and precious time trying to manipulate people or outcomes in order to achieve a state of contentment. The university student who accessed joy. I once asked several university students at a mindfulness workshop why they were so stressed. Here is a conversation I had with a young student. Why do you get yourself so stressed out? Because I have so much work to do in order to pass my master's degree, replied the student. Is the degree important to you? Of course it's important. If I pass, I'll have the chance to work for a law firm and eventually become a junior partner. Why do you want to become a junior partner? So that I can work my way up the ladder, have more influence and earn a lot of money. Why do you want to have a lot of influence and earn a lot of money? I asked. If I have a lot of money and influence, I will have enough financial muscle to provide everything for my future wife and children. Do you have your own family yet? Not at the moment, I'm single, but I want to prepare myself, the student replied. So, why do you want a partner and children? Because I'll feel complete and satisfied, the student replied. Do you mean that you will feel happier if you have all of these things? Yeah, that's it. I want to be happy and feel good about myself. I want happiness. Why don't you just decide to be happy right now, rather than spending most of your time desperately hoping to find happiness in something that hasn't happened yet? You can still create your own reality and meet your dream partner, but you can start to feel happy now before you meet her. This conversation helps the student to see the futility of booking appointments in the future to be happy, when he could consciously make that choice in the present moment, and also that he would have a much better chance of attracting his dream career and partner if he was vibrating joy in the present moment. The wonderful realization of mindful living is that we do not need an excuse to be happy and serene. Being joyful comes as a result of being mindful. Nothing more is required from us apart from honouring the nowness of life. What a startling revelation. Realising joy. Joy is one of our natural states, which, contrary to popular belief, is not dependent on any activity or external event. Although life can be emotionally painful at times, underneath the molecular turbulence, there is eternal joy. People who practice regular meditation and yoga will fully subscribe to this. Even in the more scientific approach to meditation, like transcendental meditation, neuroscientists have uncovered that deep below our conscious level of thinking is a great stillness of mind, a sense of inner joy. For years, I would say, when I get this, I'll be happy. When I get that check, I'll be at peace. When I meet my heroes, I'll be over the moon, etc. The problem with this type of thinking is that whenever I did meet a hero or receive a sweet paycheck, the excitement always diminished almost instantly. This left me in an addictive cycle of anticipation, like I'll be joyful when I accomplish the next goal. There is nothing wrong with creating goals. I write new goal lists every day. However, expecting the accomplishment of these goals to bring me inner joy is futile. Goals are designed to help us progress and grow, nothing more. Feeling joy needs no planning or mental and physical activity. I learned that mainstream society programs me to need reasons or special occasions to be joyful. What a waste of a life to put a price tag or a schedule on feeling good. Right now, in this very moment, we can feel joy without having to attach any conditions to it. The fact that we can say to ourselves, "I'll be happy when this happens," proves that we have the power to feel and to choose when we would like to feel good. If we have the power to be joyful, why deny ourselves such a wonderful realization? Acceptance uncovers joy. The realization of acceptance is wonderful. Once we can accept the now, i.e. the nowness of consciousness, for what it is, rather than trying to resist or fight it, we let go of negative energy, neediness, frustration and anxiety. As a result of being calm and living in the present moment, we access love, clarity and inner peace. Let us suppose you have two people in an office environment who both have an unexpected challenge to resolve. One person accepts the challenge, almost in an appreciative emotional state, staying calm and alert, while the other person cannot accept the annoyance of the problem and starts to curse, complain and work himself up into a ball of frustration and anxiety. Who do you feel will be the most effective at resolving the challenge? To accept, in the spiritual understanding, does not mean we become passive martyrs or that we are weak or incapable of rising to a challenge. To accept, in the spiritual understanding, means we can flow with the dualities of life, positive and negative, and thoroughly enjoy the process of evolution. Naturally, this uncovers a subtle joy and happiness, a contentment in our consciousness. We all make mistakes. The question is, can you accept and live with them? Can you find inner peace regardless of circumstance? Are you able to let go of wishing for the past to be different? Once we accept our errors and challenges, we access deep inner peace and joy. It is quite remarkable how serene we can feel once we stop fighting life and instead flow with it. Joy is the key to success. The truth is that when you are joyful, your heart's most inner desires are likely to manifest more effortlessly than if you are anxious, miserable, and uptight. The feeling of joy and happiness brings us into a higher state of consciousness and awareness. As we are joyfully happy and serene, we start a magnetic process of attracting success on all levels. Naturally, the highest level of success is true peace of mind and contentment with the present moment. This is what Albert Schweitzer meant by, "Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success." Once we discard the idea that we can find happiness in the material universe, we leave ourselves open to explore infinite possibilities. Not at an intellectual level of theory, but an actual self-realized manifestation that transcends our anxious thoughts. In other words, when we become aware of the infinite supply of happiness that we have deep within our consciousness, we're truly free to live a blissful and joyful life. Imagine driving down a freeway on a bright sunny day under a beautiful clear blue sky. The road you are driving on represents the temporary human experience. On this long road there might be bumps or the occasional pothole which can cause discomfort while you are driving. However, the road still continues to flow and the sun to shine its light. If we put this metaphor into the realization that happiness is our perfect divine nature, we understand that just because we may experience emotional turbulence from time to time, it does not mean that our primary state of consciousness has vanished. We feel pain in the human experience. However, a good deal of our suffering is self-inflicted and caused by our ignorance and misunderstanding about how to remain mindful. Transcending the search for external perfection. Listen to most people's complaints. They resent their work because they believe that their job would bring them joy. Ironically, when they do attract their dream career, they complain about new obstacles that have appeared, which they did not anticipate. People complain about their partner or friends because of an unconscious expectation that their partner or friends were supposed to bring them happiness. This lack of awareness causes most of our problems and could so easily be resolved with a slight shift in our awareness. The search for the perfect human being will always result in disappointment. All human beings make mistakes, and we all have areas in our lives which will never be as developed as they are in others. On the other hand, we have great gifts and assets which could make others feel inferior. Therefore, a present human being will accept this and not try to pigeonhole or judge people based on mentally conceptualized ideas. On a higher level of awareness, where everything is perfect in the nowness of consciousness, no thought activity is necessary in order to appreciate the richness and beauty of life. However, on a lower level of awareness, like operating from the mind, there will always be faults and contrasts to find in each other. The shift is a realization that happiness is a natural state of our being. This is why in the book, Manifest Your Bliss, A Spiritual Guide to Inner Peace, I wrote, happiness is our natural state of being that cannot be found in anything external. Once we stop searching for joyful feelings in people and things, no matter what polarity the external world brings us, positive or negative, we can still be aware of the inner peace that resides in our consciousness. Chapter 5. Love. The light of awareness. Through mindfulness, we come to realize that love is the ultimate vibrational frequency that removes any illusion of separation and disharmony amongst human beings and nature itself. The power of love can disarm hate or any other warped perceptions created through ignorance. Love transcends all negativity. Through mindfully practicing love and compassion, we are able to heal our hearts and minds from our hurt and suffering, thus bringing harmony into this world. The more we are open to love, the easier it is to share kindness with all living creatures. Imagine walking down a dark, long corridor. You might feel lost and anxious, but as soon as you find the light switch, the darkness vanishes and the bright light makes the journey feel safe again. This can be compared to our own mental and emotional darkness, which may be healed once we allow pure love to illuminate our hearts. There are times, due to our past conditioning, when sharing love can be very challenging. Nevertheless, it is possible. If you wish to realize pure love, express love in your heart and give it away. Remind yourself that you are love. This is what Thich Nhat Hanh meant by saying, "The source of love is deep in us." As you give freely with no thought of reward, you're in perfect harmony with your highest nature, simply because there is no turbulence thinking involved in your actions. When there is no duality of thought, you are present in the moment, honouring the beauty of life. If you are in a situation or a habitual environment where you feel you're not being loved, this is a wonderful opportunity to share love. Even in your own home, if you are received with hostility, through the self-realization of love, you can empathetically practice compassion to those around you who are suffering emotionally. It is fruitless to expect someone who is expressing grave dysfunctional behaviour to share the same capacity to love that you can bring to them, as you have more awareness. Therefore, do not waste your time and energy wishing that spiritually unconscious or emotionally unavailable people will give you love, but rather show them love through compassion and kindness. Transcending fear. One of the biggest obstacles to humanity expressing pure love is a lack of awareness. Hate is an addictive, warped perception of reality that increases due to unresolved trauma, abandonment issues, and inner rage at a collective and individual level of consciousness. If we are not spiritually awake, when someone harms us, it can lead to us feeling this destructive and terrible emotion. However, the primary cause of all disturbing emotion is fear. Fear is the cause of hate. When people are afraid, they express themselves by harming others mentally, emotionally, or physically. Although hate can be felt and witnessed all over the world, it is an illusionary, short-lived reality because love is the everlasting source of pure awareness. When we forget our connectedness and oneness with life, we begin to think, believe and feel that we are separate from one another. Thus, we start to see people as our enemies. The world looks and feels like a living hell rather than a manifestation of beauty, abundance, and opportunity. We can see the perception of hate expressed all over the world throughout different nations, cultures, religions, and societies. It is often passed down from one generation to the next, creating a snowball effect of mental, emotional, and at times, physical carnage. Dealing with challenging people. Many human beings have had to or are currently living in painfully dysfunctional environments. Perhaps they are living with people who are not mentally and emotionally well, who violate their basic human boundaries. Some have had to live with untreated drug addicts, alcoholics, and people with all sorts of psychiatric disorders who are incapable of contributing positively to a family home. This naturally becomes extremely painful to be around. Sometimes there are moments of relief from the emotional strain of endless unreasonable demands, only to be followed by another tornado of madness. In challenging situations like these, we might not have the option of removing ourselves from the situation, and this drains us of enthusiasm, and a feeling of being trapped can develop. In circumstances such as these, unless we continue to monitor our thoughts, mindfully share our feelings with spiritually well people, and continue to meditate, suppressed anger will eventually turn into a depressive emotional state and will feed inner rage. Mindfully dealing with challenging people can be very difficult. Nevertheless, this is something that we cannot avoid. Whether it is our personal, social, or professional life, difficult human beings are bound to cross our paths. Some are more challenging than others, which is why it is essential for us to be mindfully aware of our thoughts and feelings. People who are distressed tend to distress others. They are suffering. However, that does not give them a green light to injure others. Harming others as a result of hurting is not a solution. Some people persist in creating conflict for the sake of it, while others cause tremendous mental, emotional and physical damage. However their actions are expressed, it is important that we begin to release any toxic emotions that arise within us. Denying inner rage and anger is unhealthy. What is important is that we address our anger in a safe, sound and sober way. Whether it is sharing our resentments with a trusted friend or meditating through the process, it is essential that we remain mindful of what is going on with our emotional state. If we are aware of our anger, as it arises, we are present. Even if we feel like acting in a vengeful way, as long as we are aware of this toxic emotion, we have a very good chance of not having to act upon it. This can make all the difference, because if we choose to go into battle with someone, we might protect our pride, but we will lose our peace of mind and cause even more damage, like negative karma or bad fruit. In other words, if we keep our side of the street clean and maintain our dignity, we will have a lot more power within ourselves to deal with a challenging situation or person. Naturally, This is easier said than done. However, with practice it becomes easier. We are not always going to be able to apply this practice due to being human. However, the less we lose our temper or react by spewing out verbal venom, the better it is for our own well-being and for those around us. How can we practice loving kindness in troubled circumstances such as these? All we can do during this temporary circumstance is to humbly and wholeheartedly give everything within us to remain present and transcend our negative thoughts about the situation. This is why Shakespeare said, "Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Remember that we're all connected, and anything we see in another is in ourselves. Even if we have not committed actions similar to others, if there is a lack of compassion and forgiveness on our part, we are pointing the finger straight back at ourselves. There has been a lack of loving kindness in our hearts. If we live in or work in an environment which engenders fear and all sorts of emotional toxicity, until we are able to physically move on, sharing and honouring love is the only answer to soften the temporary challenge. There is no other sane way around this. All other attempts to combat fear with fear will be ego-driven and will inevitably fail. This is why in the Dhammapada it states, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule." When living or working with mentally and emotionally unwell people, you will either become unwell yourself or you'll have to dig deep within your consciousness and gradually change your perception about the situation. This is easier said than done, especially if the people concerned show no sign of being interested in mindfulness. As you continue to meditate on how to be more compassionate and kind, you are changing the vibrational frequency in your environment. You cannot change the person or people who are disturbing you, but you can change how you feel about them. It is very unlikely that all of a sudden you are going to appreciate those who continue to disturb you. However, you can look at them through pure awareness and compassionate love. When their behaviour is ugly and unattractive, remember that underneath their suffering is a perfect, harmonious being who is struggling and crying out for love. Although their mind is plagued with fear, their spirit is infinitely divine and pure. If you meditate on their purity, you will find it much easier to be free from any potential feelings of hate that can accumulate within you. Remember that there is light within all of us. This is why Nelson Mandela said, "No one is born to hate. To love comes more naturally to the human heart." We are, as a matter of fact, the light of consciousness having a challenging experience, adjusting to sheltering in a temporary physical body. Therefore, go easy on yourself and others. It is not easy being human. Mindfully detach with love. There are times when, under the most extreme circumstances, we have no choice but to mindfully detach with love, otherwise we run the risk of seriously damaging our well-being. The behaviour of some human beings is so incredibly destructive that to constantly dance with their insanity will eventually make us sick. This is not a judgment on others, but more of a wise assessment to protect ourselves. What exactly does this mean, to mindfully detach with love? To mindfully detach with love means that we wish the person or group of people well in our hearts and minds, and then gracefully and humbly retreat from them. We become anchored in what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous calls a place of neutrality. This does not mean that we are lacking in compassion or forgiveness. It is critical, as expressed several times in this book, that we do not hold on to any resentment whatsoever. When detaching with love, we must not harbour negative emotions, otherwise our detachment is really an attachment to revenge and hostility. By detaching, we no longer allow ourselves to feel guilty about rejecting the dysfunctional behaviour of others. We can claim our power back, free from having to perceive life from a distorted outlook that has been pushed onto us by others. Naturally, this is freeing and incredibly liberating. The Bible warns us against endorsing or participating in dysfunctional behaviour. Neither is new wine put into old wineskins. If it is, the skins burst and the wine is spilled and the skins are destroyed. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and so both are preserved. In other words, if you continue to invite toxic people into your world, you will suffer as a result. Even a devout monk will be mindful of spending too much time in an environment that supports sick and destructive behaviour. He might visit, bringing his grounded presence into the environment, but he will always retreat back to his fellow monks to nourish his mind, heart, and body. Most monks, priests and nuns will go out of their way to assist the general public and then retreat back to their monastery to recharge their energy in the company of spiritually fit human beings. Therefore, if you are put in a position where you have no choice but to let someone go, draw inspiration that even some of the most enlightened human beings retreat on a regular basis. If someone has a person in their life who continues to abuse them, detaching with love might be their last option, although there are no easy decisions in situations like these. If circumstances warrant, seeking counsel on specific matters with wise human beings and through meditation will assist anyone who feels trapped and confused. Usually, an unexpected breakthrough will occur when we are willing and open to let the present moment unfold without any desire to control or manipulate events. There is a spiritual saying, there tends to be an emotional breakdown before an emotional breakthrough. And when detaching from deeply unconscious people, this is certainly true. From time to time, a divorce is the only safe and healthy choice due to all sorts of mental, emotional, physical, and even sexual abuse. Sometimes, less contact with a harmful person is very wise. Remember that a deeply unconscious man or woman might not ever change their ways or wish to rectify their destructive behaviour. If you have detached with love, and one day the person wakes up from their unconscious state, you can either make a choice to assist them, or if you feel it is not appropriate to do so, remember that there are billions of people in the world who can help him or her. Once in a while, it is simply evolutionary and quite appropriate for human beings to leave our reality for the sake of our spiritual development and their own. Many people find that once they are awakening spiritually, old friends, associates, and even their spouse or lover will move on. We resonate with similar energy, so inevitably, if you're evolving and others remain stagnant, life will force a cosmic separation. Remember that if you do not put your own well-being first, you cannot love yourself and thus you cannot truly love and be compassionate towards others. Therefore, if you find yourself having to detach with love, let go of any guilt and begin at once to focus on the gifts you have to enjoy in life. Freedom from self-denial. Many people deny that they have toxic feelings towards others because they have created a mental image of themselves as a positive human being. They therefore make it impossible to recover from hate and inner rage because they refuse to address it. How can we recover from fear without accepting that we are afraid? This can be compared to an addict who must stop abusing drugs or she will die. However, she is not able to heal because every time she is confronted about her addiction, she denies having a problem, which prevents her from applying a spiritual solution to resolve her inner trauma and mental suffering. Her denial becomes the obstacle to living a happy and peaceful life. To be spiritual does not mean we deny how we feel. It is imperative not to deny our feelings, at the same time remembering that we are the timeless, pure awareness behind these emotions, i.e., we feel our emotions, but we are not them. For many people, a spiritual awakening is a very gradual process. For others, it is a sudden and complete shift in consciousness. However, once we start the process of sowing love rather than hate, we're in a spiritually rich vibration, regardless of external appearances. Once we accept we have a resentment, we can release it and begin to uncover inner peace and contentment. When inner rage and hateful feelings start to disturb our relationships with others, we can always stop whatever we are doing and humbly practice mindfulness, bringing our attention back to the present moment. This practice is so effective that it has stood the test of time for well over 2,500 years. Share and sow love. When we truly wish love for everything and everyone, we become mentally and emotionally fulfilled. When we wish love for others, we reflect love in our consciousness. This is why Jesus said, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven." Jesus was pointing us to the realization that when we can look past the darkness in the world with the eyes of compassion and loving kindness, we stay in harmony with inner peace, or heaven, and our infinite source of supply, our Father. When we share love, kindness and compassion, we rise above conceptual judgments and develop a deeper understanding of ourselves. To share love is the essence of all life. Love is the fountain of life that transcends all egoic nonsense of self-centeredness and self-obsession. Although words cannot describe the magnificence of love, we can identify what love is not. Love is not jealous, needy, insecure, anxious, afraid, codependent, prejudiced, racist, sexist, arrogant or aggressive. When we remove what love is not, we can start to intuitively feel what it is. How can we know this for sure? Through awareness and rising above artificial, limited concepts and perceptions. Daily mindfulness meditation gives us the ability to do this. Every day, if we are open to infinite possibilities, we can see incredible human efforts spreading positive energy all over the world. From the many people who live their comfortable homes for months at a time to help those less fortunate than themselves thousands of miles away, to those in every major city who trade their evenings to bring a warm blanket or a delicious home-cooked meal to people that have no family or living accommodation. Meditate on the love you have for your loved ones and how deeply you care for them. We would want people to treat someone we love kindly and lovingly. Therefore, we ought to treat others as we would wish others to treat our loved ones. The more we share and sow love, the better for all of humanity. This is the ultimate practice of being mindful in our deeds and actions. When we earnestly allow ourselves to be in a vibrational frequency of loving kindness, we are opening our hearts and minds to a higher consciousness. Chapter 6. Forgiveness. A realization of forgiveness. When living a mindful way of life, practicing forgiveness becomes imperative. When we truly forgive in our hearts, not only do we purify ourselves from the heavy burdens of negative karma, but we begin to create a new space for positive energy to enter this world. When we forgive, we are no longer chained to the negative actions we have created in the past. If, however, we are unable or not willing to forgive someone for their actions, we are stifling our own happiness and any chance of living a peaceful life. We will also be contributing to spreading toxicity and negative energy into the collective consciousness. Seeing that the vast majority of us have made mistakes, we ought to be compassionate about those made by others. Jesus taught this. He that is without sin among you, let him be the first to cast a stone. To be able to forgive is a continuous daily practice, not an occasional ritual. With many challenging and at times dismal encounters, regular forgiveness must become a dedicated, mindful practice. When a family member or friend or work colleague hurts our feelings, unless we release our resentments, we fall into the trap of starting the karmic cycle of attracting more negativity. The Bhagavad Gita warns us of allowing our anger to contaminate our consciousness. From anger, delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. If someone has triggered something within us that makes us feel angry, unless we release that negativity, we will begin to pollute our environments with emotional toxicity. We must be able to let go of attachment to anger and any manifestations of inner rage, as we cannot be useful or effective members of society if we're harbouring negative feelings. Free from karmic debt. Forgiveness does not mean endorsing dysfunctional behaviour. Instead, we are freeing ourselves from distressing emotions, thus allowing ourselves to become efficient, creative, and powerful human beings. When we forgive others, we are actually in the process of giving. When we no longer hold on to an emotional debt, thinking someone owes us an amends, we are giving and sharing love with them. We are no longer taking from them, but giving. Unless we are mindful and aware of the gift that forgiveness can bring to us, we can easily remain trapped in a vicious cycle of revenge and scarcity. Seeing that we're all connected, we also expel any karmic debt in our consciousness, meaning that we can be free to peacefully enjoy life to the full. Healing our hurt feelings. All of us have experienced some degree of mental and emotional hurt. We have felt betrayed, grieved a lost friendship, or experienced emotional heartache. If left spiritually untreated, these disturbances can make us bitter and very unhappy. Many of us go through life nursing feelings of hurt and rejection. We feel hurt when we give our very best efforts, expressing every fibre of our being to create our heart's desire, only to have it fall from our hands. We hurt for the mistakes we have made and the silly decisions that have cost our loved ones peace of mind. Rather than accepting our errors and trying to make amends for them in a positive way through self-forgiveness and mindfulness, many of us lie awake at night, beating ourselves up or wishing we could rewrite history. Guilt and shame, if not properly addressed, can lead people to act in irrational ways by people-pleasing or adopting codependent and addictive patterns of behaviour. If someone has behaved in a series of dysfunctional ways in the past, there can be a tendency to overcompensate for this to such an extent that he neglects his own well-being. This often happens during the painful process of a spiritual awakening. This overcompensation eventually causes resentment and emotional burnout, which leads to more confusion. However, when we step into the present moment, there is no neediness or a compulsive yearning to relive the past, meaning we can transcend the negative emotions that pull us back into our painful memories. Can mindfulness heal trauma and negative memories? Accessing the present moments cannot change past events that have occurred. If we have been mentally, emotionally, sexually or physically abused, the memory of this will affect our behaviour, particularly when the thought of the event is very intense. Mindfulness cannot erase a potential reality that manifested through you because the entire field of life has infinite potential realities. The Hollywood film, It's a Wonderful Life, illustrates beautifully the potential for differing circumstances to unfold as a result of choosing an alternative course of action or making a different decision. Therefore, whatever distressing memories you have cannot be entirely deleted from your consciousness. Scores of psychologists and psychiatrists have attempted to make such alterations when treating people who have been sexually and/or physically abused, or people who have suffered with grave emotional compulsions such as sex and love addiction and codependency. However, mindfulness can transcend any heavy or toxic memories of guilt, shame, inner rage and terror, and open our awareness to the nowness of life, where everything is realised as brand new, fresh, vibrant, and joyful. When a negative memory jolts us to act out in a dysfunctional pattern, such as substance misuse, overeating or undereating, compulsively seeking sex, overindulging in work, or even exploding with fierce inner rage, if we are mindfully present and awake, we can see that the distressing memory is just a powerful thought trying to seduce us into irrational behaviour. The thought that drives us to relive someone abusing us can dissolve within seconds if we are not attached to it, meaning that by being able to observe the memory, being the witness behind thought activity, we are not identified with it. If we are no longer personally identified with a harmful thought or a tragic memory, and can say to ourselves, "This is just a thought," we transcend the toxic energy and realise we're free. We might, for example, be enjoying watching a film, when all of a sudden a negative memory is triggered, resulting in a painful emotion. Through practicing mindfulness, the ability to realise that it is just a thought is enough for the energy behind the memory to lose its power and momentum. Mindfulness does not erase negative memories, it transcends them, giving us back our deepest power, which resides in our hearts. Even someone who has witnessed or experienced extreme violence can learn to detach from the distressing memories and no longer be enslaved by them. The story of my trauma is eventually accepted as events that have happened but no longer have any power over me. Accepting the cycle of life. As life is a constant process of movement, people will come and go from our reality. We might have a mentor or a friend we value and respect who gradually fades away. This process of change, without being properly understood, can lead people to feel pain, loss, and bitterness. While growing up, I found it incredibly painful when genuine friendships ended. Due to a spiral of misperceptions, the process of change left me feeling betrayed. I recall an old friendship that had lasted for several years, but which, due to my lack of awareness, caused me to suffer when it came to an end. I put another human being on a pedestal and viewed him as a father figure. When that friendship began to fade, in the physical realm, I was deeply hurt and felt cheated. The only way I could come through the process in a mature way was to release him and any emotional attachment and sincerely wish him well. I had to forgive him and myself if I was going to restore inner peace. After I'd let go of all negative thoughts and feelings towards him, I realised that although life had removed our human companionship, the genuine friendship we had was permanent. I became aware that all authentic engagements with human beings, whether it be having an inspiring conversation with a stranger or a 10-year relationship, were infinite expressions of divine love. All negative perceptions of reality are short-lived, and when rectified, leave us with a realisation of a deeper love and appreciation for the gift of having known each other. Every relationship is an opportunity to practice mindfulness. Through this sacred exchange of energy between human beings, we can provide the highest service to one another. To play a humble part in a process of serving another human being creates a profound healing energy. Until I completely understood this universal process of forgiveness as an expression of mindful living, I could not truly surrender to the constant changes in life. The self-realization that change is the only consistent thing in the physical universe is the beginning of mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being for all of us. Vulnerability in healthy relationships. When we develop intimate relationships, there is no escaping from the fact that our insecurities, vulnerabilities, and regrets are going to be uncovered. Through a disagreement or argument with a friend, we might come to the realization that we have a short temper, are sarcastic, or that we can be self-centered. This awareness never would have been realized had the friends not indirectly supported us by bringing whatever was emotionally injuring us to the surface. When we are put in circumstances as an opportunity to heal ourselves and others, whatever is inside of us will eventually be revealed. Spiritual living is to continue to release our darkness until we are completely free from past negative conditioned behaviour. This is the highest expression of forgiveness, to appreciate whatever arises in the present moment, however painful that might be. Unfortunately, many who become aware of the more negative aspects of their nature lack the willingness or desire to heal from these. The wise action to take when presented with unresolved emotional injuries is to earnestly commit to meditating as often as possible. Unless we do this, we become bound to a repetitive cycle of acting and reacting rather than acting and responding. Originally, the word karma comes from the Sanskrit meaning action. The spiritual action to apply when we are hurt is to ask our inner source of power to purify our hearts and to grant us the desire to forgive. When we heal from illusionary perceptions of class systems, race, religion, nationality, prejudice and all ideas of separateness, we adopt a new and clean way of looking at the world. Thus the ancient saying, "I was blind, but now I can see." When we begin to truly accept, love and forgive ourselves, we can begin to truly accept, love and forgive others. This is why the Buddha said, "You can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself, and that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Giving bountifully. As briefly mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, forgiveness is a process of giving. The spiritual realization of giving is a universal law. If we truly wish to be in harmony with life, we must give with no thought of reward. This profound spiritual practice frees us from attachment and suffering. The spiritual understanding, "He which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully," emphasizes the nature of giving. To give is to receive, and to receive is to give. When we sincerely give, we're in harmony with life. When we openly receive, we are also in harmony with life. When we receive from someone else, we are allowing ourselves to be in a trusted position, like a steward, to distribute even more positive energy into the world. By giving, we are allowing the person who is giving to us a chance to create a positive cycle of giving and receiving for themselves also. Therefore, as we gracefully receive, we are creating positivity for others and ourselves. Giving and receiving, in the spirit of love, are parallel to one another. Giving and receiving are one. The process, however, begins with giving. Our receiving will then take care of itself. As we remain mindful, the process of giving and receiving becomes natural to us. Just as in nature, when we manifest good fruit, we intuitively know how to handle it and how to circulate it so that others can also enjoy the harvest. It just so happens that when we give freely, in a playful and childlike way, with no thought of reward, we draw ourselves closer to vast abundance, beauty, and spontaneous creativity. This creates a powerful vibrational frequency of opulence, meaning that all neediness and desperation are released from our consciousness. The more we give, the more we receive. However, the real fruit is in the labour of giving rather than the results and outcomes of our actions. This is where many people miss the mark when trying to adopt a forgiving attitude. They give, but while they are serving, their focus is on receiving reward, praise or thanks, rather than fully honouring the process of manifestation. A wise quote from Haggai, chapter 1, verse 6, emphasises this realisation. "You have sown much and harvested little. You eat, but you never have enough. You drink, but you never have your fill. You clothe yourselves, but no one is warm. And he who earns wages does so to put them into a bag with holes." In other words, many people give grudgingly with an undercurrent of scarcity or hostility. Therefore, they produce a needy vibrational frequency. When we give, we flow into the habit of enjoying and feeling good for those we are serving. We are able to celebrate that by assisting someone else, they are able to evolve and progress. If we can appreciate being called upon to serve and can praise everyone in our hearts for the opportunity to give, we will be in perfect harmony with life and thus all possibilities are open to us. The greater quality of our giving, and the happier we are while contributing, the more bountifully we will manifest happiness and joy. Healthy seeds in good soil. When I started to apply the spiritual principle of giving and focusing on serving with integrity, life became far more satisfying and enjoyable to participate in. For years, I denied myself a better all-round quality of life because of limiting beliefs that I was not capable of excellent work. This led me to cut corners. Due to the spiritual law of sowing and reaping, karma, and wanting to give in order to gain a desired outcome, a cycle of negativity and frustration consumed my mental and emotional state. I had no choice but to honour what the Bhagavad Gita warned. You can exercise control over your actions, never on the outcome of your actions. Unlearning my past conditioning, as a result of practicing mindfulness, was a very slow and gradual process, starting with small random acts of kindness or making an extra effort to be patient and tolerant. In family life, making the extra phone call or giving more time to help others started to change my habitual way of thinking, and so life became easier. Other actions such as opening doors for people, giving sincere smiles, being a listening friend and offering help started to give me a subtle realisation of being a part of the world rather than feeling separate from it. The more I started to give, the more I enjoyed the process of giving until I realised that by giving, I was receiving. As I started to become creative in new ways of serving and forgiving, I was feeling inner joy and producing abundant happy energy. Thus the ancient writings became a physical reality. And other seeds fell into good soil and produced grain, growing up and increasing and yielding 30-fold and 60-fold and 100-fold. Mark chapter 4, verse 8. Although these fruits did not appear overnight, with persistent action and meditation, they eventually blossomed. Some seeds take longer to germinate than others. However, if the mind is still, nature will take care of the rest. Giving in the spirit of love. When we give to and comfort loved ones, friends, the elderly, or those who require extra loving care, we are working in harmony with the spirit of love and compassion. When we embrace someone with a hug or a sincere smile, we are giving. When a baby or a child is distressed, hungry, afraid, or tired, when we bring our full attention to providing comfort and love to his or her needs, we can experience the huge value of consoling others. In my darkest moments, when feeling alone and afraid, it has been the kind helping hand of another human being who went out of their way to help me that's got me through the most difficult times. Some of these people were practicing forgiveness, giving to me even though I had once emotionally hurt them. They freed me from their debt and assisted me to free myself from my own karmic debts. Chapter 7. Understanding. Listening. When practicing mindfulness, as with the realisation of love, compassion and forgiveness, understanding ourselves and others becomes an essential way of being. Understanding brings us a great opportunity to practice compassion for other people's perception of reality. It will be increasingly difficult to be of maximum service to the world if we cannot or will not be open-minded and understanding towards people who might appear to be different from ourselves. When we can love someone who is not like us, we are living mindfully. Many of our family, social and professional troubles arise as a result of us feeling we are not being heard or listened to. Thus, we can often feel hurt or rejected. When someone feels that their feelings are being undermined or that they are not appreciated, resentment ensues. If this is not immediately addressed, mental contamination and hostility will manifest. Therefore, listening to others' concerns, and more importantly, the feeling behind their words, is the foundation for understanding others. This practice is imperative, more so than at any other time in human history, due to the incredible technologies that have created fast and easy access to different cultures and spiritual practices. Through interacting on the internet, we can tap into all sorts of collective perspectives from different countries, religions, and even in the level of local and global politics. This is all wonderful, but if we are not able to, or at least be willing to understand others' perceptions of reality, hostility and conflict will ensue. Open-mindedness. Open-mindedness is essential so that we can live in harmony with others. When we are open-minded and tolerant, we can appreciate others' ideologies and beliefs. Someone who is able to listen and is open-minded might not necessarily choose to practice another spiritual path. However, there will be no hostility or judgment. Instead, a friendliness and a sincere respect for another spiritual devotion will emerge in one's heart. An open-minded Christ consciousness follower might not feel comfortable chanting Eastern spiritual mantras or attending a Hindu or Buddhist temple, but she will be appreciative of how diverse cultures explore different ways of deepening a spiritual realization. Similarly, an open-minded person who practices Buddhism might not feel inspired to sing Hallelujah or Hare Krishna. He will be able to earnestly respect others' desire to do so. This happy, positive attitude and understanding towards other religious and spiritual practices is profound because it releases any unconscious hate, fear, or suspicion. If hate and fear are removed, there can be a collective harmony amongst all spiritual movements. Even when we disagree with certain practices or religious philosophies, rather than cursing them, we can let them be and wish them well in our hearts and minds. This deeper understanding will bring us immense inner peace and joy. The idea that human beings from different religious philosophies cannot truly cooperate in harmony with one another is only true if there is a lack of openness and understanding. I have friends who practice Islam and Judaism who are very close to each other and can put their religious opinions to one side. With the scores of different churches in the Christian religion, thousands of people come together every year to unite in Christian forum meetings all over the world in the spirit of cooperation and goodwill. Many Hindus and Buddhist followers have struck deep reverence for each other, and if you look carefully, millions of people joyfully share friendship all over the world, regardless of religious diversity. When love has been uncovered in a friendship, all religious and political beliefs are put to one side. They have transcended their differences of opinions and focused on love, kindness, and compassion. Similarly, atheists, agnostics, religious and spiritual people all get along fine, as long as there is a willingness to understand another person's perception and a practice of tolerance. It is always refreshing, if somewhat rare, to watch a non-hostile dialogue between people from different faiths or spiritual practices for the purpose of understanding one another. However, debating on the subject of spiritual perceptions does very little to create harmony. Debating might prove a valid point, but it tends to create a false sense of separation and often hostility. Unfortunately, due to the left-sided brain which dominates most societies and the obsession with academic learning, we have been programmed to debate and argue with one another when a conflict of perception arises. The difficulty with this is that more often than not, someone is going to walk away feeling bitter or undermined, which then develops into a web of resentment. Who wants to have their beliefs crushed in an aggressive manner? A respectful dialogue will create a loving, healing energy. Any dialogue for spiritual, medical, economic or political evolution which is framed in the spirit of mindfulness, tolerance and openness is the way forward for opposing ideologies to share space. When we can have a conversation with someone who we might not understand or agree with, if we seek to compassionately understand him, we have made vast leaps in our human evolution. If we wish to create dialogue with people who hold differing views from our own, whether in the workplace or at a social gathering, we can create an environment of friendliness and understanding. This will work wonders in our lives, even in the most difficult circumstances. Remember that at the core of most people's troubles, there is a thirst for happiness and peace. If we can identify this in another, we will become incredibly effective and will be a great asset to our family, friends, and community. Learning to understand others. Learning to understand others, even if we do not agree with their opinions, will create a space for future discussion, which can lead to a possible transition of behaviour, even with some of the most unconscious people. A woman might be experiencing great difficulty in building a healthy relationship with her stepchildren, but if she can appreciate and learn to understand why they might be resentful or angry, she herself will be able to detach and avoid taking anything personally. She might never be able to have a harmonious and close relationship with them, but she will be free from toxic emotions and will at least not be in conflict with them. A father might not see eye to eye with his son's best friend, who he perceives as a troublemaker. However, if he makes an attempt to find out why the boy is destructive, he will develop a compassionate attitude. The father may never wish to personally engage on a regular basis with his son's friend. However, he can soften his own heart and wish the boy well. The people we find unacceptable in society due to their extremely dysfunctional behaviour are often those who have been gravely damaged in some way, making them mentally and emotionally unwell. Many have been severely abused as children or have abandonment issues, which they cope with by creating all sorts of defensive masks. These masks, expressed in harmful behaviours, are really a cry for someone to heal their emotional wounds. Developing humility. When we truly listen to others, we develop humility and humbleness. When we can sit down and appreciate the core values of others, even if we do not necessarily agree with them, we have avoided creating a barrier. After all, the spirit of humanity goes deeper than opinions, concepts, and beliefs. At times, we may only be called to listen, but this in itself is not a minor act. Some of the most profound mental and emotional healing that I have witnessed and experienced is through one human being unconditionally listening to another's pain without passing any judgment. If you are called to listen to someone, regardless of whether they are expressing anger, sadness or joy, it is essential for you to honour this privilege by being firmly present in the moment. When we are operating in the nowness of consciousness, particularly when listening to others, we are vibrating pure consciousness. Remarkable things can happen to a person who is suffering if they feel comfortable sharing their innermost fears and troubles with someone who is truly able to listen to them. Many of my spiritual breakthroughs have come as a result of confiding in another human being who listened carefully and did not judge me. If you are given a humble opportunity to become a listener, you are allowing people to share from their hearts, which is one of the most effective ways to understand. By listening to others, we become open-minded. Perhaps we notice something within ourselves that we had not noticed before. A world political or ideological view which we had hitherto clung to passionately could be altered as a result of compassionate listening and understanding. Most spiritually awakened people alive today had to have had an open mind and a capacity to listen in order for their consciousness to reach a higher level of awareness. Any human being who is spiritually thirsty must have an open mind in order to discard any limiting concepts, tribal perceptions and religious dogma. This is what Herbert Spencer meant by, "There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation." Chapter 8. Awareness. Being aware of our awareness. We are conscious beings. We must be conscious of our own awareness, otherwise we would not be able to process what we are aware of. This is a universal realization which cannot be denied. We are essentially pure consciousness, which perceives the material universe through our own awareness. Therefore, let us stay open and aware of our conscious awareness. But where does this vast awareness come from, And how does it contribute to creating a peaceful, healthy, and happy life here on Earth? When we are mindfully alert and spiritually awake, we cannot help but become aware of the vast levels of consciousness. As we still the mind of all neediness and anxious emotions, a subtle awareness manifests and is able to observe reality. Naturally, this fresh insight deepens our ability to explore our capacity to access inner peace. When someone wishes in their hearts to be happy and free, exploring consciousness is of paramount importance in order to override the dualities of negative and positive emotional states. When we are committed to realising our true nature and are enthusiastic about exploring pure consciousness, we begin at once to release all earthly stress and frustration. We start the process of purifying our hearts and minds with a flow of unadulterated, peaceful and pure life energy. This is what the Bhagavad Gita means by freeing ourselves from material contamination. Higher levels of life. When we explore our awareness and reach higher realizations of pure consciousness, we are able to witness our minds in action. Mindful living raises us to higher levels of awareness that not even the most gifted intellectual minds can access if they do not honour the present moment. Unless a human being is able to monitor and observe his thoughts, no matter how skilled he may be at dissecting information or memorising knowledge, he cannot access intuitive breakthroughs, nor can he ever be truly at peace with himself. But where do inspirational thoughts and groundbreaking ideas appear from? Thought is certainly not a byproduct of the brain. A thought is an image we see. For instance, if you were to think of a lake, you would see a lake in your mind's eye. However, there is no lake in your brain. Your brain acts as a screen for thoughts to be projected onto. The brain does not produce thoughts, and yet thoughts have a direct impact on the brain and how our neural networks behave. We know in modern neuroscience that repeated thoughts, compounded by a coherent behavioural structure, change our neural networks, which in turn begins to alter our perception of reality. As a result, our cognitive behaviour can change to produce higher expressions of life, such as developing an abundance mindset, becoming loving and compassionate, and having a deeper appreciation for being of service to one another in a harmonious way. When we are able to reconstruct our thoughts life, we not only affect our brain, but directly impact the lives of others. Through mindfulness, we can directly improve the prefrontal cortex in the frontal lobes of our brains, transforming ourselves into highly effective and peaceful human beings. Whenever we still the mind of thought, we allow the brain to access the highest level of awareness. As we still our thoughts, we are allowing pure consciousness to bathe us with a joyful and blissful state of being. As written in the programme of Alcoholics Anonymous, our thoughts life will be on a much higher plane when our thinking is clear of wrong motives. When we explore thought activity in our consciousness, we observe that our minds are instruments which are pilots of the brain, altering the feelings, emotions, behaviour and activities taking place in our cells. However, being the observer behind the activity of thought that impacts the brain, we come to realise a stupendous power that transcends all of our worries, concerns and fears. Thankfully, through expanding our consciousness, we can also improve our physical health. All doctors now recognise that strain and stress on the human nervous system and body can produce all sorts of disease. Through being consciously aware and by monitoring stressful and uncreative thoughts, rather than emotionally attaching ourselves to them, we can prevent all sorts of stress-related illnesses. The great sages and spiritual teachers from the early movements of self-awareness have pointed out to us our ability to explore consciousness. The Buddha revealed the illusions of the mind, and Lord Krishna shared that when meditation is mastered, the mind is unwavering, like the flame of a lamp in a windless place. Inspiration. Inspiration is a thrilling and extraordinary energy that is available to all of us. It is a universal realization that moves men, women and children to perform incredible works. When we are inspired, we are not focused on why life does not work out. Instead, we are focused on serving, being present, and co-creating a healthy and peaceful world. Our emotional states can change within seconds when we have a glimpse of inspiration. We become open and at one with pure consciousness. Inspirational thoughts and feelings are generally clouded by negative conditioning and limiting beliefs. The more we are engaged in brain deadening and negative discussions in our minds, the harder it becomes for inspiration to flow within and through us. The power of inspiration is not a byproduct of thought, but can be expressed through a thought or an intuitive feeling to take action. Inspiration originally meant being in spirit, indicating that when we are inspired, we are connected to a higher domain of pure awareness and pure consciousness. True inspiration can only flow through us when we are anchored in the present moment. Timeless consciousness. Have you ever heard the expression timeless consciousness? When we reflect on this description, we come to realize that nothing in the universe really dies. Everything changes from one state to another. Consider a caterpillar that transforms into a beautiful butterfly or an acorn into a great oak tree. But what about us? Who are we? We cannot be our human body. After all, in less than 1 year, the human body recycles over 98% of all of the matter in the body. We have a new skin once a month. Every year, our body recycles itself and transforms into a new one. We, however, do not die through the process. One might say, I am my brain. However, the brain is an organ that cannot function without a mind or soul to direct it. For instance, Albert Einstein's brain has been stored in a science laboratory, but without Albert being there to use it, it is of no use whatsoever. One might say, I am my mind. However, when we meditate, we realize that we can think, but our thoughts are not who we are. We often say, I think so, or I think this or that, but who is the I behind the person thinking? The I represents a timeless field of consciousness having a physical human experience. In the East, this is called pure consciousness or emptiness. In the West, we call it the soul or spirit. At a deeper level of consciousness, a field of infinite potential, there is no I because everything is connected in this physical universe. We are all unique expressions of pure consciousness experiencing the human journey. Imagine that a water drop represents the soul and the ocean represents pure consciousness. The water drop is part of the ocean, but each and every drop, a soul, can have a unique experience before returning back to the great ocean, pure consciousness. When we meditate on this, we realize that our niggling worries and day-to-day anxious thoughts are not worthy of our time. Yes, we have to live in the world, like pay our bills, be of service, fulfill our duties, etc. However, we do not have to be of this world, as in becoming a robot programmed into a limited structure. Collective consciousness. As one united, superfield of pure awareness, experiencing one another in what appear to be separate compartments, as in human bodies, we have access to an unlimited field of pure potential that we can bring into our reality. Consciousness is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. However, when one views consciousness as a chemical byproduct of the brain, when bodily deficiencies come into play, ignorance emerges, suggesting that pure consciousness must be an illusion, because if it were controlling the mind and body, there would only be perfect physical health. This misunderstanding of the nature of consciousness can be settled with a slight shift in observation. If the brain is injured, it makes it harder for pure consciousness to use it as a sound instrument. This is no different from a taxi driver who wants to drive from London to Paris. If his car is not working properly, it does not mean that he is limited or decayed. It simply means that his instrument, as in his car, is not up to the journey. Similarly, it is inevitable that the human body is going to grow old and decay, as with all physical things in the universe. Nevertheless, that does not diminish the consciousness that uses a body to observe in this mystical, physical universe. If you have a mobile phone that has a lifespan of 3 years before it starts to malfunction, just because it eventually becomes less fit for purpose, it does not mean that you are worn out. Similarly, the fact that our bodies are aging does not mean that our infinite nature or pure consciousness is decaying. It simply means that the body we are using to have this physical experience has a limited lifespan. When the body is no longer able to function, we continue as we are: pure awareness, pure consciousness, and infinite love. The sooner that we accept at a certain stage of human experience the body gradually starts to die, the easier it is for us to go deeper within and truly explore our consciousness. This frees us from identifying ourselves emotionally with a physical body. Although this is easier said than done in the modern age of body worship, it is our responsibility to take care of our bodies, but accept in our hearts that one day our bodies will no longer serve us. Life infinitely recycles. Consciousness ultimately expresses itself through billions of human brains and nervous systems, which are channels for new life to manifest into the physical world. This realization brings awareness that we are all interconnected to one another, that we are one consciousness. It brings awareness that you are connected to me and I am connected to you, just as we are connected to the sun and the moon and the stars and planets that are billions of light years away. This is why Dr. Deepak Chopra says, "Awareness is a singularity, perceptual experiences are many, and the evolution of species is actually the evolution of consciousness." This appreciation of the gigantic realization of cosmic oneness is enough to clear away any debris of confusion, unhappiness, or dissatisfaction. The sheer beauty of our infinite nature, once realized in the depths of our being, is a reminder of how spectacular life truly is. The story of an unhappy life that dominates so many minds no longer has any power because the story is exposed as being false. Through mindfulness meditation, the exposure of false evidence appearing real, as in fear, is quickly expelled. This breakthrough in awareness came about when the Buddha revealed to humanity that suffering was mostly self-inflicted and a great illusion in the human mind, which could be overcome by being aware of the consciousness that was having the painful thoughts and emotions. A taste of the sweet nectar. Once you have had a taste of pure consciousness, the essence of your very nature, you cannot go back to being enslaved by a lower state of misery which you might have fostered for years. Once you have accessed a higher level of pure awareness, although you might fall back into old habits of unworthy thought and action, there will always be an imprint on your heart that there is another more profound and beautiful way to be. Through mindful living, the realization of connectedness to everything is so intense that a desire to be compassionate to all living creatures becomes a way of life. We cannot help but feel connected to living creatures when practicing mindfulness. The idea of harming creatures for pleasure or to satisfy our taste buds begins to diminish. Thus, the realization of love, peace and harmony strongly guides our perception of reality. This is why in the Karaniya Metta Sutta it says, "Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings." Someone who seriously practices mindfulness as a way of being, and who is operating from pure awareness, will not wish to deliberately harm another human being or any other creature. Our ability to train our brain to be more mindful and compassionate releases us from animalistic desires. We become conscious of our environment, the company we choose to keep, and the type of food and drink we are putting inside of our bodies. We feel connected to a higher nature more than ever. The ability to see indescribable beauty in all things becomes second nature. Thus written in the Bhagavad Gita, I am the self, O Gadagesha, seated in the hearts of all creatures. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Similarly, Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. Both transcendental teachings are pointing us to the eternal realization of pure consciousness, or spirit, deep within all of life. Everything changes apart from you. If you were to stay perfectly mindful for the rest of your life, purely observing your thought life, you would be an unconditional witness to the fluctuation of mind activity. Your body will have grown older, but you will have remained the same, free from mental and emotional attachment. Once we remember our deeper nature, stress and strain do not hold us in mental shackles any longer. We become free from being a slave of the human mind and the ego. The mind was not created to dominate us. The mind was designed to serve us. However, when we identify ourselves as the mind or as the body, we are allowing the mind to take control, which will cause immense suffering. Allowing our minds to control us is as foolish as expecting a 5-year-old to take control of a house with fully grown adults living there. It is beyond her capacity, and similarly, it is not possible for a mind left to its own devices to bring us harmony and inner peace. We must still the mind through mindfulness to prevent it from creating chaos. Remember to come back to this book to prompt you to flow into the present moment as often as possible. This is the ancient secret to true happiness and peace of mind. How can we tell if we have developed spiritually? Ramana Maharshi once answered this question with wonderful awareness. It is the degree of absence of thinking that determines your progress on the spiritual path. In other words, the less we think and the more we anchor ourselves into the nowness of life, the more spiritually rich and free we are. It is by developing our ability to completely transcend our thought life that we are able to flow more deeply into the light of pure consciousness and awareness, that we call spirit, and be present and joyful beings. Reflections and notes. If you have been inspired by a particular paragraph in this book or a sentence has deeply touched you, reflect and meditate on whatever has moved you. Rather than writing your reflections or notes on a scrap piece of paper or on a separate digital device, make a note of your insight in your personal notebook. If you have underlined a passage, rewrite it in your notebook. Reflect and meditate on the feeling behind the words. This will help you to deepen your awakening. If there is a sentence that you can sort of understand, but are finding it difficult to fully realise in your consciousness, rewrite it and come back to it after several months of seriously practicing mindfulness. Quite often, when we read a spiritual insight for the first time, it might be difficult to unconditionally resonate with it due to our awareness not yet being open enough to connect with the meaning behind the words. The more you persist and practice honouring the present moment, the easier it will be to fully resonate with the spiritual teachings in this book. Some of the insights you understand now may mean something completely different to you in 3 to 5 or even 10 years from now. There are various levels of awareness when honouring the present moment, meaning that we will continue to transcend and evolve in our consciousness. The key principle is to remain open and alert and to keep practicing. You have been listening to Mindfulness Meditation, bringing mindfulness into everyday life, written and narrated by Christopher Dines. Copyright Christopher Dines, 2015. Published by Le Petite Fleur Publishing.